Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Lipso. I am a UI UX designer currently working for the firm Aon Group. I currently work in design systems, creating software. So, um, that aside, I decided to make my own YouTube channel and try and mess about with this first journey of creating my very own component bank with no constraints. So I'm gonna make it how I would like to approach it and with my own rules and styling. And I hope by creating this and documenting this that I can also teach you guys a thing or two about Figma, about design systems, component banks, and you guys can also ask me any questions you'd like concerning Figma, concerning my approach, or personal questions, whatever now comes to mind. I will try and respond to them in the next video I will be posting. So make sure to leave a comment and a like and stay updated by subscribing, and I will get back to you in the next video. So, and again, since this is probably gonna not be viewed by that many people, presumably, if you already leave a comment, I will be sure to answer that in the next video. So there's a 100% chance for you to get any questions answered. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm currently in a free version of Figma. This is a work in progress, so I'm just gonna slowly upgrade my stuff, as we go by. But for now, it's a free version, and in a free version, you can create, I think it's like free projects or something, a one team project, and then free files within that project. But that's that aside. Let's start by calling this component bank untitled. All right. So I am thinking about, as the first thing to create, should be maybe a list item. So I'm gonna first create an artboard here, just so I have some container to work in. I'm gonna make it in full HD, call it test artboard. This is also the one I can refer to when I would like to showcase it as a prototype. But since this is a blank canvas, there's nothing to show yet. All right, and I was trying to mess around a little bit beforehand. I tried to come a little bit prepared before making this video, so I knew what the hell I was doing. Anyways, I would like to create a list item. And the reason for a list item and maybe not creating a button as the first thing is that I think a list item is just so versatile, and you can use this for nearly everything, even a button actually. But yeah, so I'm gonna start by going outside my canvas because I would like to create some components to slowly build my Lego pieces, so to say. That is the point of a component bank in the end as well. So I'm gonna grab my text tool, and I'm gonna say, we're just gonna use some random text. I'm gonna say list item, and I am using a font named Inter, which is a pretty known font by this point. You've probably seen a lot of other people refer to it. Before this, it was probably Roboto, which was Google's standardized font in many places. But yeah, so I have this text string here, and I'm gonna make it into an auto layout by pressing Shift and A. And now you see it changed from this list item, and now it's like inside this group, which is called an auto layout. I'm also gonna name this for list item, like so. Maybe let's just use so. And in this auto layout, we can then change some constraints. You see now it's aligned in the very center, so no matter how we change this auto layout, it's in the center. But since we're working in for a list item, we would like to go from left to right in the reader direction. So when we work with any content, it's important that we keep some sort of visual hierarchy. But I can talk more about that if that is something you would like to hear more about. But yeah, I am now left aligning it. So now when I move this frame around, you see it always stays to the left side of this container. I'm also gonna change the padding a little bit. I'm gonna make it 12 by 12. This is basically, you can see here, this is basically the constraints I'm putting around this text, so it can never be, the text can never bleed into other content without this padding. And I'm gonna put, I'm gonna make sure that this is hogging contents, so it will say that the container will clamp around the text, and because we set it to 12 pixels, as you can see here, it's not gonna go anywhere nearer. So if I set this to, let's say, 0, then it will be as close to the text constraints as possible. But we don't want that, so we're adding a little bit of padding to have some white space and to create some nice visual hierarchy. All right, so next up, I'm gonna define the width of this container. Since I would like to work with a mobile first approach, I'm gonna make sure to use a default of 320 pixels. So I'm gonna change the width of this like so. So now we have a width of 320 pixels with a text inside of our list item. Now, this is looking all good and everything, but we can't really show it in action. So let's try and maybe also make room for an icon. So let's, by using the polygon tool, I'm gonna create a hexagon like so. I'm gonna just change this to pure black. I'm gonna decrease the size a little bit so it's not so heavy. I'm gonna say 18 by 18. And a little bit same ruling, we would like to create some padding so it has a soft landing with all of the other components. So I'm gonna also put this icon into an auto layout. But since this is an icon and we would want more flexibility, we're just gonna leave a tiny bit of padding. I'm gonna use the rules of 2. So every time I create any kind of spacing, I'm gonna skip 2 pixels every time. So instead of creating something 1 by 1 pixel, I'm gonna skip 2 every time, like so. Google, they have by default, I think it's 3 pixels. It depends a little bit. So it's like 3, then it's 6, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna go 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're gonna hit the same numbers, but just in different approaches. All right, so I'm gonna make this icon into a component because we're gonna use it for several uses and in other use cases as well. So I'm gonna call this base icon. All right, there we go. And I turned it into a component. You see now it's turned purple. So I press Control Alt K on my keyboard. That turns it into a component. You can also doing it by, let's see, I can create this into a component as well. Basically what this does is I can make instances of this component like so. And I can then, if I then choose to change the properties, it will then affect all other instances of this component, even the color. The cool thing about instances is that you can also apply your own rules to an individual instance. So let's say I choose that this one should be blue, but I still want to keep the shape and everything of the rest. So you can see if I change this, the shape of this one, it still affects both of the instances, but I keep the blue, the new rule I set for this one. So let me just go back a little bit here. So we created the base of our icon. So I'm gonna put this into our list item here. Now you can see our list item got a little bit more chunky in the height. So I would actually like to, you can see here, if I give this a fill and remove this, you can see, because we have applied this 12 pixel padding, it's gonna hog around the thickest content inside of our wrapper. So I am gonna make sure to make this just a tiny bit smaller. Let's do 16. Still too big. Otherwise, you know what? Let's just go with let's let's do, you know what, that's fine. Let's just keep it as it is. We can always tweak it later down the road. That's the good thing about working non-destructively anyways. So I'm also going to turn this list item into a component. And you will see why that is the case soon. But now we have made a base icon component and we've made a list item component. And the list item component is 320 pixel wide. But now let's maybe also define some responsiveness. You see, nothing is happening right now. You remember I left aligned all of this, so no matter how we stretch this, it's gonna stay in the center and on the left side. But we would like this icon to be on the furthest right side with 12 padding from the sides here. So the way I'm gonna approach this is by clicking on the text layer and set it to fill. The reason why I put it to the text layer is because the text is the one thing that is most likely going to be dynamic in the width. The icon's size and constraints are going to be very much the same at all times. So the text is what we can play around with and make responsive. So what happens now is that the text is always going to follow the length of this list item. But you can see when I try and close this, it's gonna do this weird thing. So I'm gonna press the text here, go to options, type settings, and press on this truncate text. This makes sure that instead of collapsing the text under each other, it's gonna make these 3 dots instead. So I just find it looking a little bit nice and keeps everything on one line. Now what we can also do is, you can see when we close this one, it kind of like sticks outside of the edge of this container. I'm gonna fix this by clicking on clip content. So now everything will like go inside of this container as well. That's just a cool little trick. You can make some really cool reveal animations later down the road when we are gonna prototype this thing. So now 320. And the last thing I would like to do for this list item is I'm actually gonna make one more icon. Also, you can see that the spacing between each icon is also going by 10 pixels. I'm gonna do half of 12 just to keep some sort of symmetry. Do 6. So now you see it looks like this. But I would like this other icon to be on the left side. This way, sometimes you would have an icon telling some key information, and then you would maybe have an icon that works as a button, for example, as a collapse or expand feature on your list item. So this is going to come in handy later down the road as well. But yeah, so now we have made our list item here, and it's fully responsive as well. And yeah. One last thing we can do before I end this video is I'm gonna also define some styles. So for this, I'm gonna use something called surfaces. So when we have our background color here, when we apply any kind of content inside of our background, when you look at these fancy dashboards, you would like to have a container, and we can give that a little bit of a surface color variation. So I'm gonna just increase this a tiny bit, F1, F1. So now it's a little bit gray. And yeah, so now we already have our first list item made. I know this was a longer video for very little, but I already hope that you learned a few tiny things from this video, and otherwise there will be a lot more to unfold when I work more with nested components and creating more complex styles when we go along this journey together. But I hope that you would like to stick along, see what I can do, and ask all the questions you'd like. Preferably one actually, but I'll try and answer it as good as I can in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Awesome. Peace.